Hi, I'm Claire, and this is all about guilty pleasures. Those tropes and narrative conceits that make us go kind of like, I know this is terrible, but I want some more of it because I'm enjoying it so much. So shout out to Erin for suggesting this topic on Patreon, and to all of the other patrons that voted for it in the poll for, I think January, so I'm sorry this one is quite late, but it happened, so there we go. So first I wanted to start with a bit of a definition of what I mean by like a guilty pleasure trope or type of story, because of course there is so much baggage that we put on the term guilty pleasure, or that is generally put on that term around us, but for me really what it means is something indulgent. Something like a super gooey chocolate pudding. You're not necessarily always in the mood for it, and it's like a bit much, but when you are in the mood for it, it just hits that spot and it's perfect and you are just happy. And it was almost a bit difficult to narrow it down to things that specifically are guilty pleasures for me, because there are so many like types of stories or tropes that I really love and give me warm fuzzies, but I don't necessarily consider them so much of an indulgence. They're just things that I like. But I ended up with kind of three broad categories of things that genuinely I consider to be a bit of a guilty pleasure, because they are silly, but I love them anyway. And the first is holiday themed anything. And by holiday themed anything, I mean any kind of holiday special that a TV show that I already watch might do. So from Great British Bake Off Christmas special to the Thanksgiving episodes of Friends. Like if you're going to rewatch just a few episodes of Friends, the Thanksgiving ones are quite high on my list. Even though I have many problems with that show now, the Thanksgiving episodes are just mwah. You know what? Just chef's kiss is exactly the feeling that I'm looking for from something that I would call a guilty pleasure. Even if you know it's not the best, you still get that, oh my god, I love it feeling. I've already explained what I mean, so let me carry on. Hopefully I won't get too much more carried away by the idea of a schmaltzy Christmas movies and like fanfic where one roommate has to go to visit the other roommate's family for Thanksgiving and it like changes the way they see each other, or they have to like spend the holidays together because they don't get along with their family, and so you know they have this kind of tender found family moment together over the like slow lull between Christmas and New Year. And I feel a tiny bit bad, not because I think the fic is not very good, but because this concern of like, what am I gonna do for the holidays? Where am I going to go and stay? Is someone going to be mad if I don't go to their one thing at that one time? Like those are real problems that people have. I always have to do Christmas between France and the UK, and it's always a little bit difficult to navigate like when you're going to be where, and the thing that I personally prefer to do doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. But you know, if I'm reading a fanfic where that's happening, or if I'm watching a terrible Netflix movie where like someone's a prince of a country, then I don't have to think about that and the terribleness happens to other people. This is not making me look good. Moving on to my second broad category, which is a couple of fanfic tropes that have a lot of overlap, I guess, and I'm saying specifically fanfic because I love to read fake relationship, marriage of convenience, forced proximity, like there was only one bed left at the motel in fanfic, and I don't have such ease reading it like in traditional books and seeing it in other media. And I think it's because the kind of stakes that exist in those other stories are maybe a little different. There is something of a contract between the writer and the reader when you're specifically reading fanfiction, or in fact romance. When you're reading romance anything, whether it is fanfic that focuses on romance and shipping, or it is in fact romance novels, it's just that I actually don't like know as much about the romance genre, but I have definitely read original novels in the romance genre that touch on things like fake relationship and stuff like that, and I have loved those as well. So in a story like that, something like fake relationship for whatever reason, something that would be super stressful in real life and you wouldn't want to get near it, but in fic it gives you this delicious pining that you are confident is going to be resolved in the end. The stakes are relatively low because you know they're going to be alright in the end. And a situation is something that in real life might go from being mildly uncomfortable to like outright dangerous, like there is only one bed left in this motel and it's a double bed. But in this particular context it can be just fun. You can just focus on the characters that you love and the emotions that they're having. And I want to be very clear that I'm not saying these tropes are guilty pleasures because they are fanfic tropes. I'm saying they are guilty pleasures because they are fanfic tropes that I will read no matter the quality of the fanfic. There is excellent fanfic out there. There is also like a bit more, you know, wobbly quality fanfic. And if it's a fake relationship or if it's two characters that I like stuck together in a motel in a snowstorm, I will just put it in my eyeballs even if it's terrible. There is so much in fanfic that like actually does really deep work of exploring character and stuff that like the canon text doesn't go into and all of that. But sometimes it's also just like warm chocolate pudding goodness that you just want to read because it makes you happy. And for me, those specific fanfic tropes are that. And of course, super shippy fanfic is not for everybody. It's also not all that there is to fanfiction at all. It's not all that I read in terms of fanfiction, but I do read quite a bit of it. It makes me very happy. Now, in kind of sort of the same way as I love fanfic and the kind of feeling that it gives me that I can enjoy the tension and suffering of those characters and the way that they like rack their brains about what to do, but everything's gonna be okay in the end, is my third category, which is those quite frankly trashy reality TV programs on Channel 4 that pretend that they are documentaries. You know, the ones with the little clip at the beginning of it that goes, "Challenge your perspective with documentaries on 4." Those are not documentaries, Channel 4. I love them, but they are not documentaries. That's not what that word means, okay? I'm talking about shows like Hunted, which is a TV show here in the UK. I know there's a US version, but it might not be everywhere. It's a show where people go on the run and then there's a team of hunters tracking them with like surveillance cameras and stuff. But also, obviously, the people going on the run like literally have a camera person with them. And of course the hunters are pretty much always on these people's tails and they pretty much always manage to find them, even if they don't necessarily manage to catch them before someone can win the big money prize at the end. You kind of get the feeling that you don't really see how the sausage is made. I would love a show that showed me how Hunters was made. It would be fascinating and it would even probably qualify as a real documentary, unlike, you know, Hunted. Or another show that John and I watched recently when it was on SAS Extreme Training. I can't remember what it was called, but it's one of those TV shows where they take a group of people who have, for whatever reason, volunteered to be on that show, and then they put them through this like mock training as if they were going to be like in the special forces. But obviously it's not a real thing. It's just like ex-special forces people who are now TV presenters. There is a lot of really like tricksy editing going on where like you can tell that they are, you know, putting clips next to each other that probably were a couple of hours apart so that you can think that someone's gonna get caught. But then, you know, they've already left the barn in which they were hiding before the hunters come there to like find them. Or in the case of SAS, people on the show like have an actual character arc. You can tell because this season of SAS, there was a woman they only introduce in the final episode. She made it to the very end of the training program. She was one of the last like 3 to go. She was a shepherd, which is weird and interesting enough that they should have told us about it before that. And then they just introduce her at the end, like, here's this girl, she's a shepherd, and then she was gone. And I was just like, edit this better. So as you can see, I'm very emotionally invested in the editing of TV shows that I watch now because I do video editing. I hope you can tell from the way that I've been talking about these things, like how it is that I relate to each of them a little bit and why it is that I would consider these specifically to be guilty pleasures. So that's it. These were my kind of guilty pleasure tropes. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though I think it's going to be a little bit all over the place. Please let me know in the comments below if some of my guilty pleasures are also guilty pleasures of yours, and if not, do let me know what it is that you really enjoy that gives you that indulgent feeling, because sometimes we just need a bit of escapism and a bit of feeling nice, and that is completely okay. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video on screen right now. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face for a new video from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.